Hi everyone, in this video I'm just going to show you the fiberglass patch again. I've already made a few videos, but I just want to show this one without using any cloth. So this is just a DIY repair. This is not a professional repair or restoration here. It's just to clean up the rust on an old winter car or your second car, your beater. And it's a quick repair, and I'm just going to show you how to do it with the fiberglass and no cloth, just the reinforced fiberglass filler. You can also call it Bondo glass. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have to remove the wheel because there's a hole in the wheel well, and we need to be able to get in there to get rid of some of the rust. Remove this wheel, block up the car to make it safe, and then we can start cutting out this rust. Okay. So now we can get in here. We'll have lots of access with the grinder. So before we go to work on this, we're going to want to put a wood block underneath the car. Never work on a car with just a jack underneath of it. Okay, so I'm going to start removing some rust, and you can tap around to see how solid everything is. So the farther you go up, there's more rust. So, you know, that's the thing, is you don't know what you're getting yourself into once you start cutting out this rust. Now, a good thing to do before you even start this is to scrape out, if you have access in here, you might as well scrape all the dirt, because that's what actually destroys the car. This is the dirt that gets trapped in here is what rusts out the rocker. So you want to scrape out all the debris in the rocker. And so, because there's trapped road salt, there's dirt in there, and you can actually just tap it, and it's all going to fall out. So we want to get all that out of there. And now what you can do also is you could wash this out as well. Once you've scraped it, you could then take the hose or the power washer and you can power wash this out of here. And all the dirt, it's a really good idea to do this. Okay, so now you can take a wire brush if you like, and you can go around the area with the wire brush and just remove some of the loose rust on there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the grinder. Now, you don't have to use a grinder like this one I have here. This is a big one, but you can use a Dremel or a small cutoff tool, and you can then start cutting off the rust with that. So I've got this large grinder here. I would recommend a small grinder or a Dremel to do this if you haven't used a grinder before. You can buy small grinders at Canadian Tire. I've seen them on sale for 20 bucks. And what I'm just using a cutoff wheel here, and I'm going to start cutting off the rust. And I've showed this in another video, but let's just do a refresher. And don't forget, when I turn on the grinder, it's going to be extremely loud, so turn down your volume. Okay, so I'm going to use the grinder now. Make sure you're wearing eye protection because there'll be rust flying everywhere. So you should do that. now I'm going to use the cutoff wheel. You should use a grinding disc for this, but I don't have any, but I use these cutoff wheels a lot. I'm going to use this to actually grind down the surface of the metal. And when you do this, make sure you only use this surface, because if you flatten out this surface here and you make it very thin, the disc is then going to break apart on you. So let's get started here. So I've finished removing the rust, and I've taken off as much as possible, and I've cut out the worst of it, and this is really nice and rough now from the cutoff wheel. So I've also ground down some of the rust in here as well. Now I'm going to try using the fiberglass patch inside of the wheel well. I've never done this before, but I'm going to see how long that lasts. Usually I would weld a piece of metal in here or pop rivet a piece of metal. Also I've used self-tapping screws as well, and then you just cover over the whole thing with some roofing tar or whatever undercoat, and it lasts for a long time. But I'm going to try the patch in there, and then I'm going to coat it with the roofing tar or undercoat. Now I've ground this down and I've removed most of the rust. Now some of the rust is pitted and you can't get to that unless you sandblast it. Now this is just a quick repair, so we're not too concerned about that. But what I do is I put on a rust mort. This is a commercial brand, but it's basically an acid. Once you put this on the rust, it slows it down. It stops it from coming back. It's used as a foundation for body filler and whatnot. So we're going to apply a little bit of this, and just, you should put this into a container, a little container, and just brush it on. Now I'm just going to brush it onto where there's some rust here. Under here, this surface is pretty good. There's a little spot here and there, but it's not needed for, you don't want to put it on where it's bare metal. So while this is open, you can then have access to sort of coat the inside areas as well where it's rusted. So you can get that in there and coat it. You could also paint in here if you wanted. So the rust mort has dried, and I'm ready to now mix up my fiberglass and the short strand fiberglass. So what you're going to need is a mixing board. This is just a piece of metal. It's been used quite a bit, but it's not too bad. I mean, the cleaner the board, the better, but it'll be okay. And so we're going to mix this up. We're going to need the hardener and you're going to want to have your wax paper ready also. So we'll just mix some of this up. Now, basically you only want enough. You have to gauge it, so you don't want to mix up too much, and then have to throw it out, or because it'll harden up on you and you won't be able to do anything with it. So you only have a few minutes once you mix this up. So once you put the hardener in, that's it. So take out what you think you're going to need. I'm going to make a fairly large patch, but basically you can gauge your patch right on the mixing board. So if your patch is about that big, then there you go. You probably have enough there. So that will be good enough. Now, hardener, mix the hardener in. You can mix a bead across the pile, and now you need the tube. Make sure you need the tube. It mixes it up a little bit. Now, with the hardener, the more you use, the faster this is going to harden up. Now, it depends on temperature as well, but basically run a bead right across the pile, and that should be plenty. If it's colder out, you could add a little more. It won't hurt, but it will harden up a lot faster the more hardener you use. I'll put a little extra because temperature out here. And then you can start mixing your material. Okay, so you want to mix this up pretty thoroughly, and then you're going to apply it to the wax paper. So you're going to apply this right onto the wax paper about the size of the patch that you're going to be using. So quickly mix this. There's a better way of mixing this I don't have. Okay, now take your wax paper once you're ready to go here, and take a piece. It's windy out, and it's going to be a little harder to do this. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're just going to put the material onto the wax paper, and you're going to spread and make a patch. So spread that out onto the wax paper, the size of the area you're going to be repairing. Doesn't have to be perfect. Try to keep the wax paper from sticking to each other. Okay, so we get all that material onto there. Looks good. So now we're ready. Come over here with our patch here. And we're just going to take this and we're going to stick it on. So this is a fairly large patch, so I'm going to come up about there, put that on like that. Hopefully the camera's picking this up. So now what you can do is you can smooth in a bit. So now, because there's no material, there's no metal left here, you sort of have to just form it by hand. So if you want to sort of make it look like the original panel as best as possible. So once you've stuck this on, you just sort of press it and feather it in a bit. Going to feather in the edges a little bit, so you can work with it while it's still soft, but once it hardens up, then that's it. You can't work with it anymore. Now if you pull the wax paper, it'll actually make it a bit smoother. So we're just going to smooth this in. Doesn't look too bad. Also push it along the bottom of the seam here. Okay, so we basically have the form of the original panel here. And you can start working. Now what you can do is you can take a flat squeegee or a trowel, and you can then form this as well with the trowel, but and you can smooth it out to make it a little better. Okay, so that doesn't look too bad. Okay, so now it's time to test to see if the wax paper is ready to come off. And you can see that it's not sticking to the material. And you don't want to leave it too long, or the wax paper will then stick into the fiberglass. It's a lot harder to get it off. So that's why you want to keep an eye on it. And all you have to do is just peel it back slightly, and you'll see that it comes off fairly easily. You can see how smooth that is. And be careful, because if it hasn't set up, then you'll pull the material off of the patch. Okay, so I think this is ready to come off. Okay, so it should just peel right off, and there we go. Okay, so now it's fairly hard now, and what you can do before it hardens right up is you can take a body file like this one. This is a rounded body file. You can also get them flat, and then you can take off any high spots with this file, and basically it's like a cheese grater, and you'll see the material coming off fairly easily. So you can just go over these edges here while it's still soft. If it's hardened up, then you won't be able to use this. So you have to use it within a certain amount of time after you remove your wax paper. So this basically just smooths it out, feathers it in, takes off high spots. Now, if you're not intending on doing any more, you don't want to make it any straighter or smoother, then you can just go ahead and sand this with a palm sander or just by hand with some sandpaper, and then you can prime it and paint it. Now, I cover that in my other DIY. So if you're satisfied on how smooth this is, then you really don't have to apply another coat or put any body filler on. What you can do is just sand this with some sandpaper. You could use a palm sander if you like, and then all you have to do is prime it and paint it. Now, I have some other DIY videos I've done on bodywork, and you can check those out. They go into more detail on the sanding and the priming and all the other processes. I'm not going to cover it in this video here. So now what I'm going to be doing is the inside of once I've sanded this a little bit, then I can go in and do the inside part here. But I've made up my patch here, smoothed out on the wax paper, and I'm just going to try to stick it in here and see how this goes. Basically just take the patch here, pretty big patch, and just sort of get it where you want it. Drop her in there. That wasn't that hard. Now I'm going to push it right into the wheel well here, right into the all the crevices and roughly make it look smooth. You can pull the paper and it actually smooths it out a bit. But it doesn't matter in here. This is going to be coated with asphalt undercoat. Now, it doesn't matter if this hasn't completely sealed here, because then you can just put another coat over top. So you don't have to worry about that in any way if the patch didn't cover perfectly, you know. Okay, so I'm just going to let that set up, and I'm not too concerned of what it's going to look like inside the wheel. So I've taken the wax paper off the inner wheel well patch here, and it doesn't look too bad. You can see that it is bonded directly to the other patch here, so it's one solid patch here. And now I'm just showing this video because it's just an alternative to using duct tape or foil tape, or trying to fill the area with something and then go over it, because that'll just trap moisture. At least with this patch here, that you're not going to have anything in here like a filler, like steel wool or foam or anything like that, that's going to trap moisture, and then this whole thing is just going to rot right out. Like, it's going to be completely gone if you have steel wool behind here, because it's just going to trap any moisture or water in it, and it's never going to dry out. So this at least keeps, it's basically like the original formed metal, but yet it's fiberglass. So this is just a DIY. This is not professional body work here. It's better than, in my opinion, than duct tape or foil tape or anything like that, trying to fill this with something like foam or steel wool and covering over it, because that's not a very good patch job. But this here, it's not too bad, and it's going to last for a while. It depends on how you maintain. If you oil the car or you rust proof the car, then this might be on here for many years. So it's just a DIY. I don't want people getting too upset, too many professionals, because if you want to do this right, you would then buy a jobber panel and you would MIG weld it on here, or you could even pop rivet it on at the seam. So if you want to make this a little smoother, you can check out my other bodywork videos where I show the sanding and then applying the body filler. You can check those out on my channel. So now with this patch, it's only intended for your own vehicle. You're not doing this to fix up a car and then try to fool someone. I've never ever done that. This is just for my own use. And if you want to try it, you can go ahead, and it works for me. But I'm not trying to tell anyone that this is the right way and the professional way of doing bodywork. So I just want to make that clear. Well, check out my other videos, and thank you for watching.